Chasing Giants with Don Higgins and Terry Peer. Brought to you by Osseo Camo, nature's most lethal camouflage. Follow along as Don and Terry discuss the techniques, strategies, and dedication needed to harvest one of God's most amazing creations, world-class whitetails.
Welcome, everyone, to the Chasing Giants podcast, episode 267. And this episode will air on April 6th. Don, it's been a busy week for you, but not in the normal way. We are in peak season for Real World and now Green Prairie. You've been helping out a bunch there. But I want to start off the show with some exciting news that today you received your Chasing Giants edition Osseo 360 blind by freight, and you got, even though you saw it at the trade show, you got your first real look at it when you didn't have people around. Tell me what you think of this thing.
Well, I think hands down it's the best blind on the market easily. And, you know, I unloaded it and I left it outside because I already know where I'm going to put it up, and I'm hoping to get it up next week. But, you know, it was out there in the sunlight and everything, and got a chance to really look at the detail that they put into the metal on the outside of that blind, and, you know, how they folded that metal at the bottom and wrapped it around. And there's not going to be a squirrel eat this blind, I'll tell you that. And then I got inside. I didn't realize that there was a rubber mat on the floor instead of the carpet. Really like that for a couple of reasons. One, it deadens the sound, and I think it'll give you a little more insulation than that thin carpet. I love the sound deadening foam on all the wall panels. The windows, totally different windows than the 360. I mean, it's the same system, you know, the silent slide windows, but those, I don't know what you call them, those peak windows or whatever that you look at when you're standing up, they're much bigger. Something that really caught my eye about it when it was sitting outside, though, is when you stand back and look at that blind, the windows look absolutely black. You wouldn't see anybody in there. But then when I opened the door and got inside the blind, it was like you could see like it was daylight, like they were just barely tinted. And I'm guessing it's the same material they use on all their blinds, but that just really struck me too. It's got to be the best blind on the market.
Well, you're going to be doing a walk-around video for Chasing Giants TV that will air here in the very near future. It was we want to talk a little about these storms a little bit, but it was raining today and you didn't get a chance to finish that up. You've been up every day helping at Real World and Green Prairie. It's our peak busy season. The Miscanthus is, some of our busiest shipments are in early April and early May, because that's when a lot of the areas around the country can plant it. And we've had truckloads after truckloads of stuff going out. So you've been up there helping every day this week.
Yeah, they were just a little bit short-staffed this week, and busy as can be. I think there was 40 pallets of seed went out on Monday by freight. We got a shipment in of Miscanthus today, but, you know, I think we had, and I've been answering the phone mainly, but pitching in here and there where I could. And I think I had 3 calls today. The people are getting Miscanthus next Monday, and they wanted to add to their order. And we just don't have any extra at the moment because, you know, and we had a full semi arrive today, a Miscanthus, but that's all going out on Monday. And plus, we already had a semi there. So on early next week, Monday and Tuesday, between the shipments and people picking up, there's going to be 2 semi-loads of Miscanthus go out, and we got more semi-loads coming in next week. So the message here is, folks, if you want Miscanthus, don't wait till the last minute to call an order. You need to get it ordered and get your ship date picked out, because we try to have extra on hand, and typically we do, but for some reason this year we're getting a lot of last-minute orders. And, you know, I looked at the end of the quarter on our sales, and we was down a good little bit in January, but by the end of the quarter, you know, the end of March, we're right there where we was last year. And the trend is that now everybody's waiting till last minute and buying, and we're having a hard time. I mean, today they was bagging up clover and chicory because that was, the inventory of that had run out, and it's just everybody's waited till last minute this year more than they typically do. So if you're wanting something, guys, don't wait till the last minute, because you might find that the inventory is short.
Well, let me give everybody a little bit of insight that's listening right now. Switchgrass, we talked about that earlier in the year. The growing season that they had for switchgrass and the seed quality affected the supply and availability of it. There is less switchgrass available in the marketplace right now than ever before. But you have to order it and get it. It's going to run out. Miscanthus, if people give us the order, they let us know ahead of time, we can harvest as much as we want, but that's a matter of us getting it out of the field and propagating it within a window of time to get it. There's not a limited supply, there's a limited harvest window of where we can get those rhizomes up out of the ground and get them shipped, because once it gets to a certain point, we cut that off. So while switchgrass, there's a limited supply out there, Miscanthus has a limited harvest window. So either way, folks, we're not making last call yet by any means, but we are telling you the way things are shaping up. You better get it on order if you want to.
Yeah, the Miscanthus, we can dig as much as we need, but once that starts to break dormancy, then the digging window's over. And we dig extra every year. I mean, every year we have more than what we have sold, and then we end up selling every bit of that extra that we had. Switchgrass, like you said, I mean, I've seen some interesting switchgrass posts on social media in the last week or two. But yeah, it should run out like it has in recent years, almost for certain. But there's some talk out there, and we didn't even talk about this before we got on and started recording, Terry. But I've heard from some local sources that there's been some discussion that these switchgrass fields, especially bigger fields, do not make good bedding cover for deer. And that is the biggest bunch of nonsense I've ever heard. And what we need to do for Chasing Giants TV is just produce a video of all the big buck footage that I've got of mature bucks coming out of my switchgrass fields in the afternoon. They was obviously bedded there, coming out in the evening, and I mean over many years, and not just big mature bucks of all sizes. And this idea that deer won't bed in switchgrass is just absolutely nonsense. I mean, I've seen it for 20 years plus on my own farm, so I don't know where that's coming from.
I don't know, but it never ceases to amaze me. People twist and turn based on what they want to sell, but yeah, teach their own. Let's talk about storms a little bit. We're recording on Thursday night this week because of travel schedules this weekend. This was supposed to be our last weekend of consulting, but we both got hit by a really hard storm last night. You had tornadoes close to you. I had them within 8 miles of me, and there's some visits that we had on the schedule. We're going to have to postpone another week or two until things dry out. We're going to be underwater.
Yeah, I had a visit scheduled for tomorrow morning, which we postponed till sometime next week. South of me, south of Effingham, southern Illinois, they've got a lot of rain, a lot more than we have north of Effingham. In fact, the last rain we got was about 3/10. That had been about a week ago, and I was down in southern Illinois right after that, and they had 3 inches and water standing in fields then, and they've got a lot more since then. And even this last storm that we had yesterday, and it's actually raining right now too, it appears that south of me is getting a lot more. And I actually heard a report that down around Evansville, Indiana, was supposed to have record flooding. And I was hearing reports of 12 to 15 inches of rain they were expected to get in the next 3 days. So hope that don't happen for those folks, but it's definitely changed our plans.
Sure. My area is supposed to get between 5 and 8 inches of rain, and there's just water standing everywhere. I mean, even in our yards, there's any low spots the ground just can't take any more water. So, especially where I was going to be doing a consulting weekend, in hill country, man, those bottoms, and most of the bottoms are how you access the farm. That's where your entry into the road is, and then you go up top, you can't even get into these places. So prayers for those people affected by these storms. I know there is a lot of tornado damage that was done through Arkansas and I believe Tennessee last night. I'm sure there's other places also. But crazy times every spring, but this year, man, that's a lot of rain. So let's take a quick break and listen to a spot from Osseo, and then we'll be right back to finish out the rest of the show.
Osseo Gear introduces a premium line of bow hunting gear that is unmatched, pairing nature's finest camouflage with the best technological innovations. Osseo Gear brings whitetail bow hunters the gear they need to be the best at their craft. The unique camouflage mimics the intricate feather pattern of North America's greatest predatorial creatures. Designed for invisibility, built for comfort, and engineered for function. Visit OsseoGear.com. That's ASIO Gear.com to start shopping. Osseo Gear. Prepare to be invisible.
Okay, welcome back. This week, we started dropping a few more videos on the Chasing Giants YouTube channel under Chasing Giants TV. Don, did you have a chance to watch Dr. Aaron Gaines's video about mineral that we posted, I believe, on Tuesday this week?
I started to watch it, and then I got a phone call, and I never went back and finished it. So I probably got to watch about the first minute of it. But I've been in contact with Aaron a lot this winter and early spring, and him and I are on the same page when it comes to mineral. What just amazes me is how gullible deer hunters are from a marketing standpoint. I mean, I don't know if there's another group that is as gullible as deer hunters are. The proof is in some of these junk products that people swear they work just because the marketing behind them tells them it works. And it's just part of it. I mean, they can buy what they want and use what they want, and they can believe what they want, but there's absolutely no way some of these products are doing what they claim.
I enjoy the comments of people who post and argue with somebody like Aaron. I mean, he's one of the industry, not just in the hunting industry, but the livestock industry, nutritionists out there. And they argue with him on what research says does or doesn't happen with intake of minerals for herd health or for animal health. And it baffles me sometimes that people, boy, I'm probably gonna make some people mad here. People won't shut up long enough to listen to somebody with the credentials that he has to learn. They just immediately come back with what they think. And, maybe I'm guilty of that too. I don't know. But when people like Dr. Strickland or Dr. Gaines talk, I need to listen more than anything. I don't need to reference some Facebook post that I read somewhere else about some research. These guys are at the top of their game, and I need to listen more than I do speak or argue or talk. That's for sure.
Well, I think there's some people, I won't say most people, there is a certain percentage of people that I think they get on the internet just to find something to disagree with. And if the person they're disagreeing with has a title or some notoriety, then they really love to disagree with those kind of people. I mean, they don't want to disagree with, just the average person. They want to look for a known person in their field, and that's who they want to argue with. And it's just the nature of the beast. We live in a different society than when you and I grew up, and especially me being older than you. I said a long time ago that when I'm talking to someone, especially older than me, I want to listen because they've lived through the life phase that I'm in now. And it's always been like that. I talk about Alan Foster and what a influence he was on me. Well, he's 10 years older than me. And when I met him, I was in my late teens. He was about, pushing 30, and he was doing what I wanted to do. So when I went and talked to Al, I didn't, spout off all my knowledge. I asked questions, and then I shut up and listened to the answers. And I have never, ever thought of myself as an expert at anything. I consider myself a student of the whitetail. And a lot of what I've learned has come from other people. I mean, a lot of it's firsthand experience, but a lot of it is started with something that someone else said. And Aaron Gaines has been a teacher of mine. And the list just goes on and on. Dr. Bronson Strickland, as you said, has been a teacher of mine. And there's even people that most people have never heard of. I go to a lot of clients' properties every winter, and I have a lot of conversations with these clients. And I learn from my clients, and they'll say something that sparks a thought in my head, and it just causes me to, see something from a different angle than I'd ever previously thought. So it's a continual learning process. Anybody that thinks they knows it all doesn't know anything at all.
Well, we're going to talk about, before we do the listener submitted questions, we're going to talk about some work you and I both have planned for this coming week. There was a video that just dropped on Thursday this week of grown-up cattle pastures as bedding. We had a camera on my place this week and showing 3 different scenarios of, some grown-up pasture that was being cut back, and then some that had been let go too far, almost like the lease in Illinois where it had been taken over by the invasives and, pretty much worthless at that point, but showing different stages of it. Please go to the Chasing Giants YouTube channel to check that out. But Don, as you start planning out your projects for the next year, how many percentage-wise of those projects are bedding versus food related?
Well, I don't think I've got any bedding projects this year. It's all basically, we talked about it a week or two ago, taking good stands and making them great stands. I've got a list of projects that I want to do around each stand. Some of these projects aren't going to take 5 minutes. Like maybe I need to show up at a stand site and cut one tree down that's blocking a shooting lane or something, but I've got a lot of those projects. My food plots will be basically what I've done before, although we are continually testing some new stuff. You and I talked about that before we started recording. Got some test plots going in of some new things, but mainly what I'm doing is stand work and improving stand sites, and they got Austin Razor coming to help me this week for a couple days, and we're going to try to get that new Chasing Giants 360 blind in place. Got a creek crossing land bridge that I'll be working on to get that finished, which will be right in front of that Chasing Giants blind. But that blind is going to be, and I've already said this I think on a previous podcast, that blind is going to be on the #1 spot on this farm, and I'm doing some things to make that spot even better. And we're going to have a video on Chasing Giants TV of that location and what we're doing, and video some of these projects taking place. But that where that blind sits, and about from the base of that blind out about 30 yards in any direction, is going to be the hub of my entire property. And I promise you, every buck on this property is going to walk in front of that blind at some point or another. I'm going to have a rope scrape there in front of it with a camera, hidden somewhere. Not that camera's not going to be out in the wide open where it spooks bucks, but I'm going to have it up, angled down, and off to the side. It's going to have a battery pack on it that's going to last throughout the entire season, so I'm not in there changing batteries. It'll be a cell cam, so I don't have to go in there. But there's a lot of things I'm going to do at this one location, and I'm going to video document all that, and hopefully shoot a buck from it next fall, and have a second video of the hunt.
Well, I think it's ironic that, over the past few years, you've done a lot of bedding projects, with the expansion of the farm, and I've been all food. This year, I'm going all bedding. I mean, we're planning a lot. We're doing some test products this year, but most of my big projects are bedding related. So it's actually flipped just the cycles of what our properties need. So
yeah,
pretty interesting to see how we're both working this spring to make our farms better.
Another thing I got going on is, where you shot the King David buck this year, I am in the process of purchasing that field that's right behind there. In fact, within the next couple of weeks, I should have that closed, and I'm going to move a blind on that field edge, right where those deer come out into the field. If you're sitting in that blind, it'd be to your right-hand side and behind you a little bit. So the blind is actually going to be out on the field side, and where you can slip in real easy, especially in late season when the cover gets sparse, and it's hard to see those deer. But things are going to change. There's been some opportunities open up, and we're going to change some access points and move a couple blinds around, but always trying to make it better than it was the year before.
All right. Well, let's transition to our 360 blinds Higgins hot seat segment brought to us by 360 Blinds. Again, make sure you check out the new Chasing Giants blind and visit 360 Hunting Blinds to learn more. Now, Don, you don't know whenever I come up with these questions, you have no idea what they're going to be. And sometimes you kind of roll your eyes at me. Sometimes you laugh. Tonight you're going to think really carefully. And I take that back. You might not. Today is Miss Robin, your wife's birthday, and you all went out to dinner tonight. My question for you on the Higgins hot seat is, thinking back through your all's relationship, what is one thing that she's done for you as far as deer hunting goes that's helped you along the way of being a supportive wife?
Well, the list is long, actually. I mean, I live out here in the country. We're by ourselves. We don't have close neighbors, and I don't trust anybody on my farm, just anybody on my farm, and, don't want people to see too much. But anytime I had a project and needed a second hand, she's been there. Just the other day, she was helping me cage apple trees, and she was holding the T-post as I would use the skid loader to push them in the ground. And it doesn't really matter, but if I had to say that the thing that I appreciate the most, and she doesn't do it so much anymore, but when she was younger, she was a fireball. Yeah, she was a fireball. Just leave it like that. But when we were younger, she better never hear anybody criticize me. She would be worse. Dealing with her would be worse than dealing with me. Like if we was out in public, the two of us, and she overheard somebody saying negative about me, and even if I wasn't with her, she would be all over them. She'd be chewing them out. I mean, it wouldn't matter if she was in public in the middle of a restaurant. She'd be letting them know. And she's calmed down. I don't think she would do that today, but there was a time when anybody that spoke negative about me was going to get an earful from her, and she wasn't going to be quiet about it either.
She went into mama bear mode, huh?
She did. And me and the girls and grandkids, if anybody was to speak negative about any of us, I'll tell you what, her claws come out and she's ready for battle.
Well, there's one thing that we've always talked about, and that is how supportive our wives are to this dream we've both had. And I think our dreams are different, to be honest with you, but the passions that's fueled the opportunities that God's put before us, if our wives weren't supportive of this, yeah, we wouldn't even come close to having the deer on the wall or the businesses that we have. I mean, the businesses has become a blessing to our families. By all means, we're never going to, hide behind that. It's been a real blessing that you and I can earn a living with our passion, with this deer hunting thing. But I don't think either one of us would even come close to where we are if it wasn't for the support of our wives.
You're absolutely correct. And, I tell young guys all the time that if you don't have a supporting wife, you're starting out with two strikes against you. And whether you're striving to build a business, you're striving to kill big bucks, whatever your ambition in life is, if you don't have a supporting spouse, you got two strikes against you right out of the gate. And it's not going to take too much to give you that third strike, and you're going to be done and never be as successful. You young guys that are listening to this podcast, when it comes to, and actually this goes for the young ladies too. I mean, if your marriage is not a true partnership where, you're supporting each other and you're supporting each other, as maybe you're chasing different dreams. Your wife may have dreams of her own and you need to support her just as much. But if you don't have that, your odds of success go way, way down.
Yeah. It's also ironic to think about that neither one of our wives hunt and don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
I've always thought that was hilarious, because we have a lot of friends who their spouses are just as ate up with hunting as they are. And that's great. I think several people come to mind immediately that we've gotten to be friends with over the years, where it's a husband and wife and they hunt together, and that's awesome. But ours, on the other hand, neither one of ours want anything to do with it. And it's actually pretty funny.
Yeah, and I don't really see that as a negative. I ask Robin to go at least a couple times every season, and she hasn't gone. She used to go with me and sit in blinds once in a while, but she hadn't been in several years. And I almost feel sorry for the guy whose wife does hunt because I don't ever have to worry about giving up the best stand. I'll keep the best stand for myself. And if your spouse hunts, I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to tell her, you're going to send her to stand B while you take stand A every time? So I don't think we've got it too bad, Terry.
Yeah, we're very blessed for sure. But happy birthday to Miss Robin. I know she'd get a kick out of it if everybody watching on YouTube just leave a comment down below and wish her happy birthday. I'm sure she'd like to scroll through that and see all of the support and maybe talk her into doing a wives edition show that she doesn't want to do. So we'll see if she does that or not. But we'll be right back. Let's transition to the Midwest Land Group listener submitted questions right after this.
Don't risk your most valuable asset with a part-time agent. Most real estate agents are part-time, working another job, trying to scratch together a few extra bucks in real estate as a side gig. Their inexperience will cost you thousands at closing. Not at Midwest Land Group. They only hire full-time professionals. Their agents are passionate about the outdoors, highly trained, and committed to maximizing the value of your land. If you're interested in selling your land, don't risk it with a part-time agent. Visit MidwestLandGroup.com.
All right, the first question comes from Trace Burkholder from Fredonia, Kentucky. It says, hello, Don. I enjoy your podcast. I hunt in a wooded area and feed a lot of corn mixed with molasses. Is this healthy for the deer without feeding other things like pellets? My question is, does just corn promote health issues like hoof rot, etc., as seen in farm animals? By the way, the neighbor has food plots, so what can I do to attract deer with feed? Well, Trace, corn by itself is not a good balanced diet. You talk about foot rot. Actually, what's happening is founder, or I think acidosis is another name for it. The deer or a cow or whatever gets too much corn, and it'll cause its hooves to have issues. They'll grow long and other things. And yeah, it can happen with deer as well. Typically, it doesn't because deer being in the wild has the ability to seek out other food sources where a cow in a pen doesn't, and they will balance their diet. But a straight corn, I always discourage my consulting clients from just feeding straight corn. Now, will they eat it? Absolutely, they'll eat it. If you want to attract deer from your neighbors with food plots, yeah, you can do it to some degree, but I would strongly encourage something besides straight corn. Now corn can be the foundation of your mix. I think NutriCrave corn is a huge advantage. If you got NutriCrave corn in a complete feed mix in your feeder and your neighbor's just got a corn plot, I'd say there's a very good chance that they're going to come to your feeder, and I know they will to some degree. Now, whether you're going to totally pull them off a food plot, I have no idea. Just a lot of variables there. But, one thing about that NutriCrave corn, what makes it so attractive is the fact that it's got at least 3 times the fat level as typical ag corn, which is what draws the deer to it. It's also got more protein and calcium and a lot of other vitamins, and the deer crave that. It's non-GMO, which they can detect that as well. But even straight NutriCrave, I would not suggest feeding straight NutriCrave corn. I'd rather have a balanced diet. The pellets, like the Maximizer concentrate pellets that we sell, and also using the complete feed, it's got every vitamin, nutrient, mineral that the deer are going to need. And they will crave whatever it is that's lacking in their diet. Very similar to humans, if you haven't had a certain food for a while, you can actually crave it. And deer will do the same thing. They'll balance their diet if they're given the opportunity. And if that complete feed has some nutrient that's lacking in the area, and other food sources that they find naturally, well, obviously they're going to be drawn to that to some degree. So I would go with a well-balanced complete feed instead of just corn and molasses, and I would highly recommend NutriCrave corn as part of that complete feed.
And it doesn't sound like the person that submitted the question has the ability to plant food plots, because he didn't ask what can he plant to compete with it. He was asking more about feeding. And for those of you who think we're always on a sales pitch here, here's another thing I would tell them to do. Go buy some Gingrich apples and pear trees and put around that feeder. Even if it's a permission property, I promise a farmer will not get upset if you plant some apple or fruit trees on his property in a specific location to give you that extra drawing power to pull off of it. Because I'm telling you, people, we don't sell apple trees, but we don't sell pear trees. But I'm telling you, having some of these big fruit trees that drop late, you talk about being a deer magnet. I've never experienced anything like it. When the first time I hunted over fruit trees on your place, it was eye-opening to me about how much drawing power you could get just from a deer even coming out of bedding to come to those fruit trees before they went out into big ag, or funneling deer, drawing deer. Unbelievable drawing power with a fruit tree.
There's a reason why, even at 61 years old, I continue to plant fruit trees every spring. I mean, you can have a decent fruit crop in 5 years after planting. Now, you're not going to have bushels and bushels, but, I planted, and just in one orchard, one new orchard this spring, I planted 30 apples and pears, and then I planted a handful in other locations as well. Also, I planted a dozen persimmons. So, anything like that you can do to set your property apart from the neighbors. And that's a great point, Terry. I'm glad you brought up the fruit trees.
I was with a good friend of mine, Mike Bowie, a couple weeks ago, and we were walking around, and he said he brought snacks. So when he pulled out a banana, I kind of turned my nose up because, I've never had a banana. I'm not going to start eating one now. And then he got the deer sticks out, from summer sausage. That piqued my interest. But then he handed me this pear. And I don't know where he got this pear. But I mean, you talk about being ripe. I mean, almost to the borderline of being rotten. But I bit into that thing, and it was the best tasting piece of fruit that I'd ever even put in my mouth. And it's no wonder the deer absolutely hammer these things when they get ripe and they fall down on the ground and they come in there. I mean, it was one of the best pieces of fruit I think I'd ever had. But I'm not sure where Mike got them from, but definitely drawing power for sure.
Speaking of fruit, the best apples I ever had came from Oak Hall Valley Orchard over by Sullivan, Illinois. Mike Mitchell, a good friend of mine, his wife Jennifer own that orchard, and this is the Mike with Mike's Mighty Micros, and he sprays his orchard with these micronutrients. Does a lot of all natural stuff with his orchard. And those apples, I'm telling you what, when you eat them, you got to have a paper towel in your hand, because those apples are so juicy, you'll have juice running down your arm. And I'm just learning, again, I'm a student here. Andy, the apple breeder, gave the presentation 2 or 3 weeks ago up in Indiana, and he was talking about the micronutrients. And also, Jay is now selling a micronutrient pack with these apples. So those micronutrients are way more important for fruit production than I ever realized. And I'm going to be spraying, and I did last summer too. I sprayed all my fruit trees with Mike's Mighty Micros, depending on where they was at. I didn't go any that were like at the edge of the sanctuary. I left them alone. But I had the one orchard I planted last spring was 40 trees, and I sprayed them several times last summer. And this summer, I'll be spraying that orchard as well as the new one I just planted with these micronutrients. Those micronutrients are very critical in fruit production. I did not realize how critical until the last year or so, basically listening to Mike and Andy.
Yeah. I've seen you take apples to the stand for snacks. Is that one of your go-tos? Because the scent doesn't bother anything, and you just throw the core out on the ground after you're done. I've seen you take quite a few apples out into the field.
Yeah, well, I used to take, my go-to used to be Snickers candy bars. And out there in November when it's cold, those candy bars get kind of hard, and I just love them. And about a year ago, I started trying to eat a little healthier. Actually, it was last May when I started, so we're not quite to a year yet. But I gave up soda pop for the most part, or most part, and also gave up a lot of candy. And those apples, especially those ones from Ocala Valley, are just so juicy. It's almost like you get hooked on them, and you crave them like you would soda pop or something, and a lot healthier for you. But yeah, apples are also supposed to be good for your breath odor. An apple supposedly is supposed to kill that any breath odor that you have. So that's another advantage. And if a hunter gets smelled, where's that odor coming from? I mean, there's body odor to some degree, but your hair holds a lot of scent, and also your breath. That's where most of your odor's coming from for your deer to smell you. So if you can eat an apple and help keep that breath odor down, that's got to be a positive.
Wonder if it keeps the gas down too, because that's where probably a lot of mine comes from. Is I get the gasaguses and get that bottom end grunt call going out the bottom end of the Osseo camo, if you know what I mean.
Well, I've been hunting with you a lot, and I've yet to see you grunt in a buck that way. But I've seen you want to come close to driving me out of a 360 blind a time or two.
All right, here's the next question.
This one comes from Kirk Willard from Nunica, Michigan. It says, what are your favorite 3 pine, spruce, fir, cedar species for whitetail habitat plantings? Thank you for all that you do, and God bless. 3 favorite conifers. I would say number 1 is probably the eastern red cedar. And I know the guys west of the Mississippi are going to cringe when they hear that, because you get out in Missouri and Kansas and parts of Iowa, even Nebraska, the Dakotas, the red cedar tree is almost like a weed out there. They grow everywhere, and they just take over, and they are almost like a noxious weed. But here where I'm at, there's just not a whole lot of them, but they make fantastic cover. And the other thing I like about them is they will grow. You get the porous soil that is almost nothing but gravel, and a red cedar will grow there and do very well.
Right.
They do great, and I think that's why they do so much better out there, because the soil is not near as good as it is here in the central Midwest where I'm at in Illinois. And for some reason, they just don't seem to do as well in really good soils. But those poor soils, they actually thrive. So I know I got a bunch of people cringing, but in my area, the eastern red cedar is a favorite. Another one that I like is the Norway spruce. And the reason I like the Norway spruce over, say, a white pine is the deer don't seem to damage them near as much. Now, they will rub them, no doubt, but a white pine, a young white pine, or even a white pine of any size, the deer will literally eat the needles. They've got a really soft needle, and the deer will eat those needles, especially in the wintertime when they're really craving something green. They will eat those needles, and it's just extremely difficult to establish white pines where there's any number of deer at all. I've got some on my place, but when I started them years ago, there was no deer on the farm, and that's why I was able to do so successfully. Today, I could not do that. Norway spruce, you can establish them with quite a few deer around. And yeah, they're going to rub them, but they're not going to eat them. So Norway spruce would probably be in my top 3. Number 3 would probably be the white pine. But again, it's going to be very difficult to establish if there's a lot of deer around.
Makes sense.
If you got the ability to like cage each one or something like that, once they get some size on them, the deer really like them, especially in the wintertime. I've got some on my farm, and the deer really love to bed under those things when the weather's bad. And it doesn't have to be snow. It could just be rain. And those pine trees will keep a lot of the rain from off of those deer, and they really like to bed under them in those conditions. But again, they're very difficult to establish if there's a lot of deer around.
All right, so here's a question for you as it relates to conifer trees, because there's different uses for all of them. But like you had a land consulting client back, I don't know, I think it maybe was last year, where there was this tree literally out in the middle of nowhere, and you said, we're going to build the habitat around this tree. There's a gate there, switchgrass. This year, my Chasing Giants Osseo 360 blind is going in one of those locations. I'm building the habitat completely around where this blind is going to be. Because if you look at it today, it's going to look like it's out in the middle of a field. So right around that tree, or excuse me, around that tree stand, would you plant Miscanthus around it, or would you plant some conifer trees around it and maybe use like one of our annuals? We have the new hidden access screen now that you could use temporarily around them until those conifer trees got established to blend in that blind or provide, some structure like you have with some of your stands with some conifer trees around it. What would you prescribe in that scenario?
I'd go with the trees, no doubt about it. Most of the blinds I have on my place are tucked back in to conifer trees, whether it be cedars or pines or spruce or whatever. I just like tucking those blinds in, and a lot of times when I set the blind, the trees that I plant around it are just a fraction the height of the blind, but in a few years, those trees are taller than the blind, and the blind is just blends right in there, and the deer are used to it. But I'd go with the trees for sure.
Yeah, plant them things. How close do you plant them to a blind when you're putting them in there?
You probably should keep them back at least 10 foot. I mean, I've got some that are closer, and it seems like every year I've got to slide the windows open and stick my arm out with a pair of pruners, and I got to prune the branches that are rubbing against the blind. And the other reason I really like to do that is the deer, with those conifers behind the blind, and the blind is open in the front, the deer can't really silhouette you if they like line you up between two windows. You got a good background behind you, and it just makes it a whole lot harder for those deer to see you in that blind. But I'm always, every year, I carry pruners in my pack, and I'm always pruning branches off those pines and spruce and cedars.
All right. We got the next question coming up right now.
This one comes from Ryan Higgins from Macomb, Illinois. He says, Don and Terry, I hope you're doing well and staying healthy. My 10-year-old son, Riley, is one of your biggest fans and is totally obsessed, along with my 7-year-old, Rowan. Riley will have his deer tag this fall for the first time, and he's pumped. We were listening a while back, and he said, Dad, I've learned more about what trust means, and I trust Don and Terry. If they're still around when I'm older, I want to buy what I need from their company. I laughed a little because it caught me off guard, but it also says a lot about you guys. Thanks for being a positive influence and for having the conviction to use your platform as a ministry. Here's my question. We have a permission farm in west central Illinois in addition to one we own. The landowner on the permission piece is having a company do a timber harvest in a few weeks. I have mixed feelings about it, as it will involve a lot of work to remove the stands and determine new locations, depending on how the property changes. Additionally, I'm excited to see if the latest tops and undergrowth create some additional bedding. What should I consider in preparation for setting this farm up again after the timber is harvested? Should I get in there as quickly as possible to do more work, or stay out this season to let the deer settle back into the property? Is there anything I should request from the landowner or timber company that could benefit us in the long run? Well, Ryan, the first thing I would suggest is that you talk to the farmer, the owner, and make sure that that logger takes every tree that is of size to be harvested. They like to come in, and the loggers are probably going to hate me, and they already do because I go over this so much. But they like to come in and cherry pick and get the white oaks and the walnuts, and then they like to leave all the pallet wood type trees. But the first thing I would do is I'd suggest to that landowner that, hey, if you want to really manage your woodland the best, you need to make them guys take all the species. Don't let them cherry pick. It doesn't matter what size of trees they're cutting. If they're, cutting trees, say 18 inches and bigger, they need to take every tree that's 18 inches and bigger, no matter the species. And don't just cherry pick. That'd be number one. Number two is, I don't think you act like this is going to be a big negative, and I see it as a big positive. The cover that's going to be coming on after this timber harvest is going to be way thicker, so you're going to have better bedding cover. So one of the things you could do is, if you've got the equipment, is maybe drag some of these treetops to funnel deer closer to your stand or something like that. But I don't think this is a negative at all. I wouldn't move off of the farm for a year or nothing. I would who knows if they're going to cut the trees where your stands have been. You may be able to go right back to the same trees, but, if not, you need to get right back in there and see how it's affected deer movement. I think it's going to increase the amount of deer activity on the property. It may change movement patterns a little bit, but there very well could be more deer instead of fewer deer, and I see it as a golden opportunity. But the big thing for me is make sure those loggers take every species.
If they just cherry pick the good stuff, what's going to happen is it's going to make your pallet wood trees flourish. It basically pushes the property back from a timber value standpoint. So if the farmer wants it to be it's no different than a crop standing in the field. That's where I can't get people to understand that when we're visiting these consulting clients. They're afraid to cut their woods hard, and by just going in and picking 8% of the trees and harvest them, that's probably the worst thing. You'd be better off with them leaving it the way it is. But the sycamores and the hackberries and the locust trees, they all thrive when you take those big white oaks and walnuts out. You gotta cut everything back in order for it to flourish the same way back again for future generations.
Those bigger trees are producing the most seed, whether it be acorns or whatever kind of seed a particular tree produces. So if you take out all the bigger oaks, you've taken away that seed production. And then if you left all the pallet wood, the hackberries and the sycamores and the cottonwoods, well, guess what? The oaks are no longer reproducing because they don't have the seed there. But those other trees that you've left are producing all the seed, and pretty soon you end up with a junk woods that doesn't have the good oaks and such in there. So cut it all.
Well, and Ryan, as far as Riley goes, send me a message with you guys' address. I'll send your kids a couple Chasing Giants hats that they can sport around, and tell him he better call us when he gets his buck on the ground next fall. So we want to hear all about it. So, all right.
The next question comes from Ryan Balsley from Davisville, West Virginia. It says, Don and Terry, thank you both for being good witnesses and ambassadors for Christ in the outdoor industry. With you both finishing up your consulting season and now focusing on continuing work on deer habitat, do either of you have a regimen you follow when it comes to combating ticks? I have treated my clothes with permethrin, and while it has helped, I've still been bitten numerous times by ticks and typically have to be prescribed a preventable antibiotic. Additionally, with tick numbers seemingly increasing in my area each year, I can't help but wonder how they could possibly impact the health of the deer herd. We are allowed to supplement feed in my area, and I was curious if you have ever heard or conducted any studies where a product such as possibly Expect Healthy Deer technology found in regard to products could help the deer herd's health in regard to excessive tick bites. Thank you. Well, Ryan, I don't have a regimen that I do for ticks. I just go out and take a shower once a week and pick them off. So no, seriously,
we're not working in the cover though. Once our consulting season's done, we're pretty much not in the woods anymore when you think about it. And we're not really in cover or woods after the ticks are out, but we get them on us for sure.
Yeah, when it gets July and we start putting trail cameras out, that's when I typically start finding ticks on me. But I don't have any regimen that I do. It's just take a shower when you get done, and if you find any ticks on you, pick them off, and that's about the extent of it.
If I get bit, I am immediately at the doctor getting an antibiotic. This Lyme disease stuff freaks me out. And now you and I would be in trouble with what's this other thing where you can't eat red meat after getting bit by a tick? I forget what that one's called, but you get sick to your stomach when you eat red meat after getting bit. You and I would be in big trouble if that happened.
I haven't heard about that one, but yeah, I got to have my steak and hamburgers. The rest of the question was about, is there anything that you can feed the deer? Absolutely. That Expect Healthy Deer technology has got some all-natural anti-parasitic compounds in it. that, I mean, I'm feeding that to my cows, my beef cows, and I can tell you that I notice less flies on the cows. In fact, it's the only thing I do for flies on my cow herd, except for I got a rub where they come through a gate to get to the water tank. They got to go under this rub, and it rubs on their back. And I got some permethrin on it. But other than that, I don't put the fly tags in their ears or anything like that. It's the Expect Healthy Deer technology in the mineral, the Maximizer Plus mineral that these cows get that has noticeably less flies on them. Yeah, we need to get Aaron Gaines on here. We talked about getting him on here. And this is the type of stuff that he needs to explain. He could do it way better than me because he's the one that formulated our minerals. And but yeah, it definitely can have impact as far as fewer ticks, whatever, parasites, and probably even midge gnats to some degree.
All right, so here you go. This is just so you know I'm not crazy. Alpha-gal syndrome, food allergy transmitted by Lone Star ticks. Gives you a food type allergy for red meat.
Alpha gal. I think I seen one of them alpha gals today, and she had a rainbow flag shirt on too. There's an alpha gal that thought she was a male.
We don't want to know about her meat allergies.
She's probably. We'll just leave that one. How about that? Alpha gal. I'll remember that one. If I get bit by a tick that's carrying alpha gal, and you see me show up on a podcast with a rainbow flag shirt on one day, you know I got the alpha gal syndrome. And please come over and just knock me in the head at that point, Terry. The next one comes from Jordan Bashford from Chenoa, Illinois. He says, "Hi, Don and Terry. I love the podcast and enjoy listening to you every week. I have heard you mention your stance on wind towers and solar farms and enjoy your rants on how it's nothing but a taxpayer money laundering scam and how you would be ashamed to have one on your property. My question to you is, how is a CRP and tree program that is paid for by the state any different? I don't believe taxpayers should be paying for private landowners' choices when it benefits nobody but the landowner and not the public. All pay tax money and should benefit all. I'm just curious about what your stance is on these wildlife programs and how they are any different than the green energy scam. Thanks for all you do, and I can't wait to hear your response." Well, Jordan, here goes, buddy. I bet you're not going to expect what I'm about ready to spout out. I'm with you 100%.
We weren't expecting alpha gal before.
I'm actually with you 100%. I think the federal government, I think all government is way too big. I think they need to get out of all subsidies, and let capitalism and the free market run its course. That one of the biggest, we could literally cut our taxes in a third. We should be paying 1/3 of the taxes we are paying if the government just did what the government should be doing. The government should fund our military. The government should fund our infrastructure. We should have good roads and bridges and all that. The government should fund our police and our fire and things like that. And there's probably a few more things I'm not thinking of. But we sure as the crap don't need to be sending money to foreign countries for any reason. Let them support themselves. It ain't as a taxpayer, it's not my responsibility to take care of some other country. Now, as Christians, I think that our various ministries and outreaches, we should be doing that, but it's not the government's place to be doing that. It's not the government's place to be funding abortion clinics. It's not the government's place to be funding wind and solar energy. It's not the government's place to be paying farmers not to produce crops in certain land. I'm with this guy 100%. I would take the USDA and get rid of it, and I know that's going to ruffle a few feathers, but why is the taxpayer? Just let the free market enterprise run. Let capitalism thrive, and we don't need to be paying all that we're paying in taxes. For all the people that think that I'm wrong on this issue, just think, if you only had to pay 1/3 of the tax you're paying today, how much better off you would be. And they're going to say, well, you're a hypocrite because you got CRP. You know what? I pay way, 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 way more in taxes than I ever take back. And the only reason I take it back is because I pay so much in. I would gladly give up every dime I get from the government in any kind of program if I could cut my taxes into a third of what I'm paying today. And we could all do that if the government, it's all a money laundering scheme, everything. This foreign aid that we send out, how much of that comes back under the table to the politicians? How come every politician goes into Washington basically just an average citizen like you and I, but they come out multi-millionaires, tens of millions of dollars? The insider trading they do, everything. These politicians are the biggest criminals, and they're running the country. I'm with this guy 100%. Get rid of CRP. Get rid of all of it. Get rid of every subsidy. We don't need to be subsidizing anything.
I've never taken a subsidy or anything outside of getting my normal tax return back if I actually get a return. I don't know.
Well,
I would
the problem is,
I could apply for some for my properties, but I don't want their hand in it. It's not what you make back out of it isn't worth it.
The problem is everybody wants to point the finger at somebody else while they're taking a payment of some sort. And, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to name a certain group, but there's all these different groups. They want to point the finger at the farmer because the farmer is getting a subsidy. Well, what about the people that are out there building these windmills? They're the ones pointing at the farmer. Well, the farmer's pointing at them, and it's all we just need to get rid of all of it. Do away with all subsidies and get the government down to the size it needs to be. I think there's all kinds of agencies, and I hope Trump gets it done, but the federal government literally should be less than 25% the size it is today. Less than 25%. At least 75% of all federal workers should be fired, and they should go out and get a real job, and capitalism should thrive. The free market enterprise should be allowed to run its course. And, yeah, I'm with this guy. Do away with CRP. Do away with it.
Let's educate our next generation instead of putting money into solar power. That's the frustrating 100%. Thing for me. All this going to this, and our schools can't get decent teachers, and I am so glad that my youngest kid is a senior in high school, because I don't know. I think if I had younger kids right now, I would homeschool them. What goes on in these schools is, and for the most part, teachers are some of the sweetest and most servant-minded people out there. But some of the crap that they let go on in our education system with what they talk about and what they're teaching, from this liberal agenda to no discipline. They can't hardly do anything. You can't look at a kid wrong without something being said. I'm very thankful that we don't have to deal with it, but I'm scared that what my kids are going to have to with my grandkids. If I had small kids right now, I'd be homeschooling.
Well, the homeschool thing is just growing like crazy. When I was a kid, nobody was homeschooled. And, my daughter homeschools our two oldest grandsons, and there's literally homeschool groups. I mean, they go on field trips together, and they, get together for different events. And so it's a growing thing because people are becoming so frustrated. But, Trump is wanting to do away with the Department of Education and send it back to the states. Well, that's not good enough for me. Forget the states. You get a ridiculous communist state like Illinois or California or whatever, and it's probably worse than the federal government.
They're going to monopolize it the way they did the deer herd.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's send it back to the local community. The local school board, the elected school board, should have the say on the education that the kids in that school district gets, and it should not be dictated to them by the federal government or the state government. You get, some scumbag like J.B. Pritzker, who's our governor, who's what do we call them, alpha gals, and he cares more about alpha gals than he does the kids. He's an absolute puke, and it just needs to be taken away. It needs to be at the local level, and if we want to have these alpha gal communities and they want to raise their kid, well, how does an alpha gal even reproduce anyway? Alpha gal.
Well, it's not all good, but I don't know.
It's ridiculous. And I agree with this. This guy thought he was going to put me on the spot. I agree with him. Get rid of it all.
Get rid of it all. That went sideways really quick. For those of you who always enjoy a political rant, you got one. And for those of you who have already signed off because you don't want to hear it, then hopefully you fast forwarded to the Sunday Night Prayer Time by Eric Perry this week. So that's all I can say.
Well, yeah.
So anyway, Austin Razor's going to come up and help you on the farm this week if it dries out a little bit. Is that what the plan is?
That's the plan. And the rain is supposed to stop 2 or 3 days before he gets here, so I'm guessing it's going to be dry enough for us to get some work done and look forward to it.
Well, I'm going to be in the final stages of getting ready. There's an alfalfa field that I want to plow under that's going to turn into corn ground this year. It's been an alfalfa for 5 years, but I don't want to plow it till Joe and Al get here to do their turkey hunt. So I got some other things that we're working on. We're putting switchgrass into my farm, which I didn't ever think I would do, but I'm going to put a area of switchgrass in this year, so need to get all of that stuff ready, and hopefully it'll be dry enough I can do a little bit. But man, we're getting a lot of water here the next couple days, so I'm not sure how quickly that's going to happen.
Well, we needed the moisture, so I'm glad to see the rain, and it's coming right now. It's not a downpour. It's just a light, steady rain, and it could do that all night and all day tomorrow, and I'll be fine because we needed it. But I want it to stop before Austin gets here, so it dries out enough that we can get some work done.
Yeah. All right. Well, sounds good. We'll check back with everybody next week, and let's try to get a hold of Aaron and have him on maybe next week or the week after to talk, because we're going to be in peak mineral season, and I think it's the perfect time to get him on. So let's reach out to Aaron and see if he has time for us the next week or the week after, and we'll make sure we let people know on social media. I will tell everybody the update. We got a bunch of people that have commented about that they like the idea of a second podcast, and all I can say is it is in development currently. So we've had some people reach out that have offered some support to help fund it, and so we're giving it a real serious look. So if appreciate everybody's prayers on that. Dad and I spent quite a bit of time traveling last week talking about it, so looks like it's something that we might try to do.
Yeah, and if we ever want to start a third podcast on marriage counseling and politics, I'll volunteer as the co-host. I'm not sure that
we'll get you and Joe Rogan or somebody to do it. That'd be funny.
Yeah. Well,
all right.
God bless everyone. See you next week.
Chasing Giants has been brought to you by Osseo Camo. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week for another episode of Chasing Giants.
Good evening, guys. Tonight I want to talk about keeping your faith. And, when times are good, it's easy to keep your faith. It's easy to give glory to God. It's easy to credit Him for everything you have. But when things go south, sometimes it's a struggle. Sometimes it's a struggle. I'm going to tell you a brief story and where this came from and kind of why we're speaking on it tonight, because I feel like what I just dealt with, everyone will have to deal with this at some point in their life. Maybe you already have. Maybe you haven't. I pray for strength for everyone when this happens and comfort. It's been right at a month ago. I got a phone call that my father had passed. I'm only 33 years old. He was only 54. It was a shock. I was not ready for it. I remember getting the phone call at work. I left work. My mom and dad have been split for about 25 years, I think, roughly. So it's just me and my little brother. So I called my brother and explained to him that Dad just passed away. I called my wife. I called my mom because my mom's been my rock for years, and I know she would also let the church know what was going on. I remember driving home. This was about 2 hours from home when I got the phone call, and crying out, thanking God for all the blessings that He bestowed upon me and my family, and thanking Him for sending His only Son to die on a cross to forgive me of my sins and my family and all of your guys' sins. And praying for strength, knowing that I was going to need strength and guidance and help in the days and weeks to come. And when I left work, I drove straight to where my dad lived, and we had some stuff to do there where he was living. I remember it was pretty emotional, but I remember being strong, not shedding a tear. I mean, just, hey, broad shoulders, let's tackle this. We got stuff to do. Making life decision calls right then and there on the fly, and having to process it and think it through. And you're not thinking clearly in a situation like that, but trying to process things in a hurry to make the right calls and everything. In the several days to come, I was leaning on God very heavily, praying a lot. The following day we had to go to the funeral home and make the arrangements and everything. And again, that was very emotional, but I had to stand strong. And I give credit to God for allowing me to do that. I'm only as tough as He made me. And He obviously made me pretty tough, but I think we're all a whole lot tougher than what we realized. In the next several days, I remained pretty tough. It was highs and lows. Things came in waves. You could be doing something down the road, or you could be driving down the road, and all at once, tears start flowing, and 15 minutes later, you're fine. I remember one morning I got up and walked in the other room and saw my wife and my son laying together asleep, and just started bawling. Don't know why, but it comes in waves. But I can tell you, as the days went on and things progressed, I started praying less and less. I didn't know it in the time. I didn't catch it right away. And I only know this from now, being blessed enough to be able to sit here and learn from this mistake. Again, looking back at it, but my faith grew weak. I got more of the attitude of, it's the grieving process. That's what it is. I can turn cold. I can become bitter. It's not like I was doing anything illegal, not at all. But it's a grieving process. Be short. I have a short temper. I'm not as loving and kind as I should be. And looking back, that all came forefront when I stopped praying as hard as I used to, or praying as much. And I'm sure days during that time went by that I probably didn't pray at all. And again, I'm so blessed that I can sit here today and learn from that experience. And that's why I want to share this with you guys, so no one else falls into the lack of faith that I did. And of course, everyone handles things different. I thought I was doing great, but I was doing great until I wasn't. It was almost like God had His hand reached out to me in hindsight, and I'm like, I can handle it on my own. I appreciate it, but I can handle it on my own. In the moment, I didn't think that. I didn't think that at all. I would never think that. But like I said, take a step back and look at it. That's exactly what I did. There's 2 Bible verses. Once that wake-up call happened, that really came to my mind. I want to share these with you because, again, at some point in time, everyone's going to have to bury somebody that they love. You're going to lose a family member, whether it be a spouse, a child, a mother, father, grandparent, siblings. And it sucks. That's the only way to put it. It sucks. But you can get through it. God will help you through it. And the first verse that comes to mind is 1 Corinthians 10:13. No temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, He will also provide a way out that you can endure it. Focus on the last part of that. He will also provide a way out so that you can endure it. He says that you can endure it. He doesn't say he's going to take away all the pain, but he'll find a way to get you out. It may not be the best route, but enough that you can get through it. You know what? As distraught as I was after losing my father, the sun set that night, but the sun came up that morning, or the following morning, I'm sorry. And then that evening, it set again. The following morning, it came back up. As much as I thought it was the end of the world, it wasn't. But this verse here really hits home. Isaiah 41, verse 10. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Again, the end of that. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. We may not be able to endure it, but I can promise you one thing. We may not think we can endure it, but through God's righteous right hand, he'll get us through it. And when your back's against the wall and you've hit rock bottom, God's hand's out. And that hand is begging you to reach for it. And, I have a 9-month-old, and he's crawling, running around everywhere. And the illustration that, looking back at all this, is I can walk up to my son when he's crawling around and I can put my hands down, and instantly his hands are going to go up. Pick me up, Dad. He has no idea what I'm going to do. He has no idea what my plans are. All he knows that his father's going to pick him up, and that's all he needs. That's all he needs. How many times is he sitting there crying? I can go pick him up. He throws his arms up, picks up, he's fine. What about our Father? Our Father in heaven. When times are rough, or we're crying, upset, distraught, whatever it may be, he's going to lift us up with his righteous right hand. His hand's out. All we have to do is go to him. That's it. And I'm so thankful I can sit here today and learn from my mistakes and share those with you guys. That regardless what's going on, his righteous right hand is out for us. So if you guys, in the future, if something happens, whether it be a death in the family or you have hard times hit, whatever, his righteous right hand is there. It's always there. And if anything like that were to ever happen, reach out to any of us on this channel. We'd be happy to pray for you, help you out any way we can. Well, guys, that's all I have this evening. But let's close this out with a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for all the many blessings that you've given us. Thank you for sending your Son to the cross and die for our sins, Lord. The love that you have for us is just so unimaginable, Lord. Lord, I pray for all those tonight that may be weak in faith or struggling in their faith, that they will turn to you and always know that your righteous right hand is out, ready to help everyone up. Again, you may not make everything disappear, but you can help us endure every issue as we come to it, as long as we go to you first. Dear Heavenly Father, please forgive us of our sins and look out for us in this week to come. We give you all the praise, all the honor, and all the glory. In your Son's name we pray. Amen. Thank you guys, and God bless.